Hi friends, and welcome to today's sew along. I'm so excited to be walking you through the Rhinecliff Overalls by Cashmerette. These overalls are such a fun and versatile wardrobe piece, and I'll be showing you step by step how to put them together. This pattern is designed with comfort and style in mind, featuring a fitted back waistline with elastic, adjustable straps, and plenty of pocket options to make your overalls as practical as they are stylish. The skill level is very approachable. If you've sewn a few garments before, you'll be comfortable here, and along the way, I'll share tips to help you get the best results. If you'd like to sew along with me, you can grab the Rhinecliff Overalls pattern through the link in the description below. For my version, I'll be sewing in a khaki medium weight linen, which has just the right balance of structure and drape. We'll be adding a 7-inch zipper for the side opening, 1-inch elastic at the back waist, and finishing everything off with an overall hardware kit that includes the sliders, buckles, and buttons. And if your fabric tends to shift around under the needle, I recommend using a walking foot to help everything feed evenly. Before we start sewing, let's take a look at the pattern pieces we'll be working with. This pattern includes 2 front pant pieces, 2 back pant pieces, 1 front bib main and lining, 1 back bib main and lining, 1 front bib pocket, 2 back pockets, 2 pant pockets made from lining, 2 pocket facings, 1 zip guard, 1 elastic casing, 2 straps, and the interfacing pieces that you'll need for the front bib pocket, front bib, and back pockets. And I'll walk you through each step nice and slow. Let's get started. Apply interfacing to the wrong side of your front bib piece, your front bib pocket, as well as your 2 back pocket pieces. I've transferred my dart markings from the pattern onto the front bib piece. Now I'll pin the darts in place. Sew the darts from the outside edge to the point, leaving thread tails so you can tie them in knots. Then we'll press our darts up toward the top of the front bib. I've gone ahead and sewn the darts for my front bib lining in the same way as we did for the front bib. And for the lining, we're going to be pressing the darts downward toward the bottom of the front bib lining. Then you can trim any excess fabric from the dart true to the raw edges of the front bib lining. Fold the top edge of the front bib pocket to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Then fold it once more to the wrong side by 1 inch. Then from the right side of the front bib pocket, we're going to top stitch. Top stitching 3/4 inch away from the top folded edge. Finish the remaining raw edges in your preferred method. Then turn those finished edges to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Give them a good press. Repeat the same exact steps to do the top hem and the side finishes for your back pocket pieces. Place the wrong side of your front bib pocket onto the right side of the front bib, placing the top edges at the markings transferred from your pattern piece. Pin in place along the side and bottom edges. Then we'll top stitch the pocket along the side and bottom edges with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Fold the top of the front bib to the wrong side the width of the extension. Give that a press to form a memory crease. Then we can open that fold back out. Place the front bib lining right sides together with the front bib along the top raw edges and pin in place. Sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and press the seam allowance toward the lining. Optionally, you can choose to sew the seam allowance to the lining from one side to the other with about 1/8 inch seam allowance. Fold the lower raw edge of the front bib lining to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Fold the main bib piece along its memory crease, placing the front bib and the front bib lining right sides together. Pin the side seams. Note that the front bib main fabric will extend 1/2 inch beyond the folded edge of the front bib lining piece. Sew the side edges with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we'll turn these pieces right side out, and we'll give the bib a press, slightly favoring the lining to the inside so that it's not visible from the outside of the garment. Place a set of strap pieces right sides together. Pin along the long edges as well as the top short edge. Sew as pinned with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim the seams in half and clip the top corners. Turn the strap right side out. Top stitch around the sewn edges of the strap with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Repeat to create both straps. Here is my back bib piece, and I'm going to mark the seam allowances along the top corners, marking that 1/2 inch distance along the top angled edges. Place the straps onto the right side of the back bib piece so that the outer edges of the straps are at the top seam allowance as marked. The angled center edges of the straps should meet in the center, pin in place. Baste the straps in place with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Place your back bib lining piece right sides together with the back bib. Pin along the side and top edges. Sew these pieces together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. We're going to trim this seam allowance by about half, also trimming away some of the extra fabric of the strap pieces, especially at the center point to reduce bulk. Then we can turn these pieces right side out. Give the bib and lining a good press, once again favoring the lining to the inside of the seam so that it's not visible from the outside. Then we're going to top stitch around the outer edges of the bib piece from one side to the other with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Finish the curved raw edges of your pocket facing piece using your preferred finishing stitches, or by simply turning and pressing the curved raw edges to the wrong side by a 1/4 inch. Place the wrong side of the pocket facing onto the right side of the front pant pocket piece, aligning the raw edges and the notches and pin in place. Sew the facing in place 1/8 inch from each edge. Place the front pocket right sides together with the front pant piece. Pin the curved pocket opening. Sew the curved edge with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim this seam and clip into the curves. Turn the pocket to the wrong side of the pant and give that curved edge a good press. Once again, pressing that lining slightly to the inside of the seam so it's not visible from the outside. Then we're going to top stitch. Top stitching the curved seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Fold the pocket in half right sides together. and pin the bottom edge. Sew those bottom edges of the pocket together only with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then finish the raw edges. Along the waistline and the side seam, I'm going to pin the pocket to the pants. Then I'll baste in place. From the outside of the pant, I'm going to pin the pocket in place along the outer edges. And I'm going to use a heat erasable pen to mark those outer edges, just using my finger to feel where they are through the fabric. I'm going to sew a 1/4 of an inch inside my drawn lines. Repeat to create the pocket facing the pocket and the top stitching onto the front pant piece for both sets. Then we'll place these front pant pieces right sides together along the center curve and pin in place. Sew the front pant pieces together along the top curve with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges together, then press to one side. Place the back pant pieces right sides together along the curve and pin in place. Then we'll sew these back pant pieces together with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and finish the raw edges together, pressed to one side in the same way as we just did for the front pant pieces. On the back pant piece, you have markings indicating where to place the back pockets. Place the wrong sides of your back pockets onto the right side of the back pant piece and pin in place, aligning the top edges of the pocket at the markings. For both back pockets, we'll top stitch along the side and bottom edges with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I've gone ahead and finished the side seams for the back pant piece, as well as the side seams of the front pant piece separately. Place the front and back pant pieces right sides together along the side seam where you wish to place your zipper. From the top raw edge of the pant, I'm going to make a mark 7 inches down the side seam. Then I'll pin together the side seam. From the top of the pant to the place that we left our zipper marking, we're going to sew with a basting stitch, the longest stitch on your machine. Once you reach the marking, we'll continue down the remainder of the seam using a regular straight stitch. Press that entire side seam open. Here is my 7 inch zipper, and I'm going to open it up and place it on top of our seam, so that the zipper teeth sit right on top of the main seam and the top zipper stop is a 1/2 of an inch below the top raw edge. Pin the zipper tape to the seam allowance only. Baste your zipper tape to the right-hand side of the seam allowance, sewing to the seam allowance only, and sewing as close to the zipper teeth as possible. Now I'll close my zipper so we can repeat those steps for the opposite side of the zipper tape on the opposite side of the seam allowance. Pinning that left side of the zipper tape to the seam allowance only on the other side. Baste the opposite side of the zipper tape in place, close to the zipper teeth. Now that the zipper is basted in place, we'll turn our pants to the right side. Here is that same side seam with the zipper underneath. We're going to draw a rectangle around this zipper opening, drawing the line 1/4 of an inch away from the main seam on both sides, as well as 1/4 of an inch away from the bottom zipper stop, which you can feel with your finger. Now that I've marked 1/4 inch stitching line around the zipper, I'm ready to sew that in place. As I was sewing the rectangle around the zipper, I did have to unpick the top section in order to top stitch around the bulk of the zipper pull. Now I'll continue unpicking the remainder of those basting stitches. Fold the zipper guard in half, right sides together. Sew the short edges with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Trim the seam allowances, clip the inner corners, turn right side out, and give it a good press. Finish the raw edges in your preferred method. Place your zipper guard behind one of the zipper tapes. I'm placing my finished edge behind the zipper tape for the front side of the pant. And we want the top finished edge of the zipper guard to be at the zipper stop. Sew 1/2 of an inch below the raw edge of the top of the pant. Pin in place. We're going to top stitch to secure the zipper guard following the same stitching line that we did around the rectangle of the zipper. Sewing the zipper guard in place from the top, then pivoting to sew along the same stitching lines along the bottom of that zipper rectangle. Here are my front and back pant pieces right sides together along the remaining open side seam. Pin in place from top to bottom. We're going to sew the side seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, then press the seam open. The stitching at the top will start 1/2 of an inch below the top raw edge of the pant, back stitching to secure. Here are my inner leg seams, and I'm going to pin in place, aligning that center crotch seam. Sew the inner leg seam from the bottom of one pant leg with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, around the top center curve, and back down to the bottom of the opposite pant leg. Then we'll finish these raw edges together and press them toward the front of the pant. Place the front bib right sides together with the top raw edge of the front pant piece. We're going to pin the main bib material to the front pant only, maintaining those folded edges on either side of the front bib piece. The seam allowances of the front pant piece will also be folded to the inside. So we're sewing over those seam allowances on both sides for the pant and the front bib piece. Sew straight across with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, keeping your bib lining out of the way. Then we'll press that seam allowance up toward the bib. With the seam that we just sewed pressed up toward the bib, we're going to take the folded edge of the bib lining and place it just over the main stitching line. And I'm going to pin that bottom edge of the bib lining in place from the outside of the garment. Once I have that lining pinned in place on the inside, I'm ready to top stitch all around the top bib. For this main bib seam, we'll be sewing 1/8 of an inch above it, Then along the sides of the front bib, we'll be sewing with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And along the top edge of the bib, we're sewing with a 1 inch seam allowance. Place your back bib piece right sides together with the back pant piece, aligning the raw edges. Also align the center notches. Pin in place across the back bib. Baste through all layers the back pant, the back bib, and the back bib lining with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Press the lower edge of the elastic casing to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Then trim the resulting overlapping edges of the seam. Press the short edges of the casing to the wrong side by 1/2 inch. Also trimming any excess material of that seam allowance below the folded edge. Place the raw unfolded edge of the elastic casing right sides together with the back pant piece, aligning the top raw edges. With that back bib sandwiched in between, pin the casing in place. Make sure to maintain the folded edges of the elastic casing as well as the folded back seam allowance of the back pant piece. Sew that elastic casing in place to the back pant piece with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've cut a piece of 1 inch wide elastic according to the measurements for my size in the pattern instructions. I'm going to place the elastic onto the wrong side of the elastic casing, aligning the center as well as the outer notches on the elastic casing. Using a zigzag stitch with a 2.5 millimeter width and a 3 millimeter length, to sew along both long edges of the elastic, stretching that elastic to fit from notch to notch. Now that the elastic is sewn to the casing, we're going to turn this elastic casing downward so that the wrong side of the elastic casing and the elastic are on the wrong side of the back pant piece, making sure that seam allowance is still tucked to the inside. From the outside, I'm going to pin that bottom edge of the casing in place, from side seam to side seam. Feeling with your finger where that bottom edge of the elastic casing is, we're going to sew with an 1/8 inch seam allowance straight across. Once again, stretching the elastic flat as we go. Sewing in a straight line from side seam to side seam, and once we reach the short edges, we're going to sew the short edges in place vertically about an 1/8 inch away from the short folded edge. On the zipper side, be careful not to catch your zipper teeth. To hem the bottom raw edges of the pant legs, you're going to fold the raw edge to the wrong side by a 1/2 inch, then once more by an additional 1 inch, all the way around. Once your hem is pressed in place, we're going to edge stitch close to the upper inner fold all the way around, sewing from the right side of the fabric. You can feel the edge of the fabric on the inside and sew about an 1/8 inch away from that upper fold. Now we're going to attach the slider and the buckle to the strap. Here is my strap with the right side facing me. I'm going to thread the end of the strap up and over the center bar. from the back side over the bar and thread it back to the back side again. Then with the right side of the strap still facing me and the right side of the buckle facing me, I'm going to place the end of the strap through the center adjustable slider. Then I'll thread the end of the strap back out behind the top bar. Take the end of the strap and thread it behind and out the middle of the slider. And sew that in place about 1/2 inch below the slider. Repeat to attach both buckles and sliders. With the outer edge of the strap aligned with the outer edge of the front bib, mark the placement of your button. Then attach the buttons in place at the markings according to the instructions for your buttons. And now the overalls are complete. And that's it. We finished the Rhinecliff Overalls. I hope you love your new garment as much as I do. These are such a versatile piece, and I think you'll find yourself reaching for them again and again. If you'd like to make your own pair, don't forget you can grab the Rhinecliff Overalls pattern through the link in the description below. I'd love to hear from you, so let me know in the comments what fabric you're planning to use for your version, or if you have any questions about the steps we covered today. And of course, if you enjoyed this sew along, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future tutorials. Thank you so much for sewing with me. Happy stitching, and I'll see you in the next video.